Hi there. This is Patrick, and this is just my little brief visual on the difference between the subject object perception and then the non dual perception, or the dualistic perception versus the non dualistic perception. So, any of you who have we've spoken on the chats and in the group know that I'm very focused personally on the impact of the senses, particularly sight, touch, and sound, and the role that they play in meditation. I believe personally that the vast majority of what is needed to reach a non dual state exists within the senses, and that by simplifying this process, trying not to make it so overwhelming in a spiritual sense and a personal meaning sense, and just focusing on the mechanics of what happens in achieving a non-dual state, we can make it a lot more available to more people. So I'm going to focus on the subject-object perception through the senses. So this is what we all live as every day, right? We have this model, this self model, and it's ourself in the world. It's what we have to have in order to survive in the world. Every animal has it to some degree or another, and our intelligence gives us the capacity to have a model of not just ourselves but others, what they're thinking and what they're thinking in relation to us, and what a bird might be doing, or what that hunter over there might be thinking about. And so we build these models about ourselves and other things within the world. And so we are in that model, the subject, and everything else that we come into contact with is the object or an object in that model, right? So the breeze is an object, traffic in this instance is an object in sound. And then it is, if you see it, it's an object in sight as well. And then if you run into it, it's an object in touch. Ideally, not that one, but birds as well, right? So you can hear a bird and you build a model. Oh, that's a bird. That's a bird singing. Without seeing the bird, you know it's a bird because you've built up those associations over time. And you say, I've got an itch, and I know it's my shoulder because you've built up those associations over time by building out these models of yourself and these other objects in the world. Down to just, you're more aware of your foot when it taps the ground than you are when it's, when you're seated or something. So that is how we survive in the world, and it's very important. But the non-dual state, what we're trying to get to when we look for the one who is looking, or look for our head, this is the point. It's that we build this model of ourselves, but in reality, all that we experience exists in this little head, right? It's all in here, and because of that, there's only one way that reality, from your own experience, your own perception of reality, could be, and that is a singular plane on which, I see it as a sphere or a dome of consciousness within which senses are engaged by external stimuli. This is still very real, right? You exist in the real world, of course, but it's just that from your personal perspective, while you feel synonymous with this body, in reality, what you're seeing is much more like this. And that if you strip away all those relationships, those subject object perceptions you've created, for example, a bird, you hear it, but you don't see it, and you go, that's a bird. Well, in reality, that bird is just a sound. It's just a chirp in your consciousness, and it hits kind of like a raindrop within your field of perception. And if you can step back far enough from kind of the VR of your own subject object simulation, then you can see that reality that, oh, I'm actually applying the thought bird to that sound, and therefore I've created a model of bird, when in reality, I could enjoy the sound of the bird to a much fuller extent if I were to just leave it as the sound in the way that I originally received it from the outside world. That applies to anything. So a breeze, if you don't apply meaning to the breeze and you just let it be as it is, then it is just touch sensation across your entire body. Don't call it breeze, just call it sensation across this broad swath of experience. And then you'll feel it in a much different way, and in some ways a much richer way. And so this is that kind of open sphere, that limitless plane that Sam talks about. I hope that's helpful.